Welcome to Lesson 6. In this lesson, we'll be exploring important coaching techniques that we can bring to our consulting conversations. Note the key word here is conversation. At its heart, individual coaching involves a conversation between two people who work together as peers, one in which ideally we speak 20% of the time while our client speaks for the other 80%. Of course, this requires us to ask powerful questions that are evocative, that encourage our clients to think deeply and respond thoughtfully. And we'll meet those responses with active listening, a technique that's already familiar to many consultants that helps to demonstrate that we hear what our clients are saying and understand clearly what they mean, a major factor in building trust. Finally, we'll revisit some earlier themes from the course to show how they can be used to support collaborative partnering, working together with our clients in a way that helps to maintain engagement throughout our working relationship. So we're getting into a subject that is the essence of good coaching, and that is the art of conversation. If we can learn to ask good questions and listen intently, we can have meaningful conversations that yield longer-term, mutually beneficial, and in a sense, more intimate relationships with our clients. This is often counterintuitive in the consulting world. After all, our clients are paying us for our advice. We're supposed to know things. We're supposed to tell them what to do. We're experts, right? Recall that this predisposes us to what psychologists call the righting reflex, the desire to correct our clients or mindlessly assert our own worldview in the hopes that we'll impress them with our knowledge. Frankly, just the opposite often occurs. We deflate our clients as we undermine their sense of competence, a subversion of a core psychological need for maintaining engagement. So how can we avoid this pitfall? Well, when our first instinct is to ask questions that evoke meaningful responses from our clients based on their own knowledge and experience. Let's dig in a bit here. I've often seen newer consultants enter a client meeting armed with slide decks and unbridled confidence that they can save the day. A typical opening salvo involves a retelling of a resume or lists of projects in which they were effective, and that's all great. If we consider what the client wants, it's a solution to their problem, not a history of all the great things we've accomplished. No matter how successful we may have been previously, we must approach every engagement as distinct and the problems as unique. Otherwise, we become mere instruments for canned methods that solve problems formulaically. We need to demonstrate our value in ways that go well beyond stepwise methodologies and focus on building trusting relationships instead. This almost always starts with a simple question: what's on your mind? It's a question that effectively disarms the client. It places the focus exclusively on them and affords them the opportunity to set the agenda and share important information with us. And armed with a thoughtful response, the next question becomes obvious, which is, what would you consider a good outcome from our work together? By learning what our client considers a good outcome, we gain great clarity about their expectations, and so it goes throughout the conversation. Each question and response build on the last. The follow-ups become clear. In this instance, having a general idea of the issue at hand and what the client would like to be done about it, we can ask the next logical question, which is, what's getting in your way? The client's response provides even more clarity, this time about perceived obstacles, areas we need to be aware of that can trip us up as we collaborate on a solution. And in the spirit of supporting the client's sense of competence, it's appropriate at this point to inquire about ideas they may already have to address the problem. This affords our client the opportunity to share past trials and errors to save time, and more importantly, respect their input and invite them to have some ownership over the solution. If they appear stuck and can't seem to come up with anything to solve their problem, a good follow-up is to ask if they've done anything in the past that might work in the present situation, or if they'd heard of anyone else with a similar problem who worked their way through it successfully. These are classic coaching questions. They presume nothing. They place the client at the focal point of the problem-solving process. These 5 questions alone might take 15 or 20 minutes to work through, yet by asking them, we can gain a tremendous amount of valuable information while respecting our client's knowledge and experience, effectively empowering them rather than acting as if only we can solve their problem. Continuing the discussion, we might want to complement our practical questions with more conceptual ones that get to the client's feelings about their challenges and the value of our consulting. For example, asking what would success look like invites a more abstract visual approach to solving their problem. Likewise, asking How it would feel to be successful elicits an emotional response that helps to provide an important context for the more analytical or quantitative information we gather during our problem-solving process. As we wrap up our initial discussion, we might ask, what was the most valuable part of our discussion today? This requires the client to think about anything they may have gained from our initial, albeit brief exchange, and often telegraphs whether they value our perspectives at all. For example, if they answered nothing at all, it's probably best to move on to the next client. If they focus on a particular part of the discussion, it can provide us with valuable insights about where to focus our energies. Finally, we might finish with perhaps the simplest question of all. How can I help? In this exhausting world of self-promotion and pre-packaged methodologies, this also may seem counterintuitive. Yet again, it disarms our client by prompting them to tell us why they want to work with us in the first place. Their answer is a powerful way to build a collaborative dynamic by providing us with an explicit connection between the challenges they face and the talents we bring to the table. To complete this discussion on powerful questions, there are a few ground rules worth visiting. The first is, as you'll note, the vast majority of questions should be open-ended. That is, they should evoke substantive responses, not just a yes or a no or a simple one or two word answer. We're inviting the client to share information from their perspective, not interrogating them to complete a discovery checklist. In addition, our questions should be deliberate, with the inquiry framed with as much intensity as the desired response. In effect, we lean into our questions, ensuring they're understood by the client and asked in a thoughtful and deliberate manner, not in rapid-fire fashion to get as much information as quickly as possible. This is a conversation between peers. Further, we don't ask multiple questions in the same breath, such as, tell me how you first recognized the severity of this problem and how it was discovered in the first place, something called stacking. We ask one question at a time to receive and process one response. Also, we don't ask questions to which we already know the answer or expect the client to answer in a particular way, like, how are your product deficiencies hurting your sales? We're not prosecutors, we're collaborators. We don't inject our own presumptions into our inquiries. Importantly, we always allow space for an answer. We let the client reflect for a bit and allow the awkward silence to exist for as long as it takes. Remember, we're inviting the client to collaborate, and we want thoughtful responses, not rushed reactions. Finally, practice. Look for opportunities to engage in conversation with clients, prospects, or colleagues. We keep at it until the style of conversation becomes second nature. Of course, when we ask good questions, we need to be prepared for perhaps the most important aspect of conversation, active listening. When we listen actively, we demonstrate that we're paying attention. We're not checking our phones or our email. Our ringers are silenced. Our focus is 100% on our client. We resist any impulse to interrupt. We allow our client to speak to finish their thoughts. When we're engaged, we offer short verbal cues that show we're hearing what's being said. We might interject an "I see" as we nod our heads in a sign of understanding. And to further demonstrate our understanding, we restate and paraphrase what's just been said to us. And in doing so, we might recall information the client previously shared to tie it into the current situation. For example, when a client describes a recent incident as an example of the problem they're facing, such as, we just lost our biggest customer after they complained about our product, and our customer support team failed to take any action to address their concerns, we might respond with something like, you're concerned that your customer support staff aren't doing their job properly, similar to the problem you told me had happened last year, as a restatement of the crux of the problem they're communicating. This also gives the client a chance to correct us if we're off the mark. While our job is to listen, it's also appropriate to share similar experiences with the client to show we understand. We might talk about a prior engagement where the client had a similar concern and describe in a general way how they dealt with it. Finally, when we listen actively, we summarize at various points throughout the conversation. We might begin our summary by saying something like, to recap our discussion so far, you lost your biggest customer, they had previously complained, your customer support staff failed to respond appropriately, and you're concerned they're still not doing their job, even after last year's misstep. Do I have that right? By summarizing, we again demonstrate that we've been listening, that we understand the client's issue, and offer them a chance to correct us if we don't quite have the story straight. Communicating in this manner goes a long, long way toward building trust with our clients. An easy way to remember the rudiments of active listening is the acronym OARS. O for open-ended questions that invite substantive responses. A for affirming, those I sees and ahas that indicate participation in the conversation. R for reflecting back what we just heard to show we understand and offer the client a chance to correct us if necessary. And S for summarizing the contents of our discussion to provide assurances to our client that we fully understand what they've attempted to communicate. And again, give them an opportunity to correct us if appropriate. Having been introduced to two crucial elements of a coaching conversation, powerful questions and active listening, we'll wrap up this lesson by mapping our newfound coaching skills to the three psychological needs previously discussed that contribute to greater engagement and motivation and our goal of collaborative partnering with our clients. Collaborative partnering means we are deeply connected to our clients in the pursuit of solutions to their organizational challenges. Rather than simply offering advice, no matter how pertinent or helpful it might be, we enter our client relationships with the goal of working together with our clients by enabling them with new tools and methods while empowering them by supporting their psychological needs. From the start, we support their sense of autonomy when we ask, "What's on your mind?" and follow up with how they would define a favorable outcome from working together. They set the agenda, they state the desired outcome, they're in control. When we ask our clients for their ideas and inquire about whether they've seen similar problems in the past for which viable solutions have been implemented, we support their sense of competence by acknowledging their knowledge and experience. In effect, we remind them that they may already have the answer and empower them in the process. Finally, we must always keep the end in mind, the vision that's supported by the larger organizational goals toward which everyone is working. This ensures the relatedness, that feeling of purpose so critical to engagement, that drives us in our efforts to improve. It's perfectly appropriate to remind our clients of those goals as we work together toward effective solutions, so as not to go too far off course, even as we help them make course corrections. Powerful questioning and active listening are core skills that, when mastered, create stronger bonds with those clients with whom we're striving to help. Before you go, using your course workbook, lesson worksheet, or personal journal, write down a few questions you might ask a new prospect at your first meeting that will have what we call juice, that are powerful in the sense that they engage them in a way that moves them forward without being leading or manipulative. How might you rephrase those questions to support the psychological needs of autonomy, competence, and relatedness? Now, how would those questions change if you were meeting with an existing client? Committing your thinking to writing activates new perspectives in a way that just thinking about them cannot. So please, take some time to complete this exercise before moving on. Up next, we begin the first lesson in the Coaching and Practice module, Practical Applications of Coaching Techniques we can apply when selling our consulting services.